Hit your gavel.
Welcome to this meeting of Akron City Council on December the 11th, 2017. The clerk will now do the roll.
Roll call. Freeman. Fusco. Hope. Cameron. Keith.
Here.
Kilby. Milkovich. Mosley Sample. Neal. Abobian. Sims. Somerville. Swirsky.
Thank you. Everyone is in attendance this evening, and tonight we will open up the meeting with a prayer, and the prayer will be from Dr. Donzella Rogers from the Upper Room Actions Ministry. Very nice to have you here. After Dr. Donzella Rogers leads us in prayer, those of you who care to join us may stand and join us. If not, it's fine. We will then do the pledge to the flag when we are done with prayer. Donzella.
Let's all stand. And will you please bow your heads in prayer? Heavenly Father, as we gather together in this constituent assembly to bind together in love and harmony, to reach the ultimate goal, to make our city a better, safe, and secure place to live, a place conducive to the needs of us all. We pray tonight that our decisions will be the right decisions and that they will impact the precious lives of our family, friends, and acquaintances, so much that our city will be a beacon of hope and light that will permeate to and through other cities, states, and countries, making us a role model that they will want to emulate. Father, we solicit your help and lead. We need you. Be with us all, now and forevermore. Amen and amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No. Would not.
I would.
Okay.
Like we do anybody else.
Okay.
After you get done with some minutes.
Okay, the clerk will read the minutes from the previous meeting.
Minutes from December 4th, 2017. Council convened a regular session at 7 p.m. with President Keith in the chair. All members were present. Minutes of the previous regular meeting read and approved. Neal abstained. Reading of petitions and communications. Passage of the consent agenda. Report of the standing and special committees. Passage and referral of new ordinances and resolution. Representation from various departments and divisions. Public speaking period. No further business on a motion by Fusco. Council adjourned at 7:55 p.m. to reconvene in special session, in regular session on December 11th, 2017, or a special call.
Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? There's been a motion and second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we will do a roll call vote.
Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Aye. Hope. Aye. Kamer. Aye. Keith.
Aye.
Kilby. Aye. Milkovich. Aye. Mosley Sample. Aye. Neal. Amobian. Sims. Aye. Somerville. Swirsky.
Thank you. Okay. The clerk will now read the letters and petitions that have come before us.
Official report for November 7th, 2017, general election for the Summit County Board of Elections.
File.
2014-2016 report from the Rebuilding Together Northeastern Ohio.
File.
Notice of a new C1, C2, D6 liquor permit to Portage Path Mini Mart LLC, 1390 North Portage Path.
Attention Ward A, Councilwoman Keith.
Notice of transfer of a D5 liquor permit to the Pyramid Tab LLC and Patio, 1941 Triplet Boulevard.
Attention Ward 6, Councilman Hoke.
Notice of stock of D2, D2X, D3 liquor permit to Toke Enterprises Incorporated, doing business as Juncos, 736 East Archwood Avenue.
Attention Ward 7, Councilman Kamer.
Right.
We are going to take a vote to take things out of order. This evening we have some guests in the audience, and we will introduce them in a moment. But I would like to take a vote as to council approving us taking this out of order. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Councilwoman Mosley Samples, would you like to introduce the people that are here? Is that true? Okay.
I'm
Ready.
reading it in.
Okay. I will let the clerk read it in.
Okay, resolution offered by Councilwoman Mosley Samples, Councilman Milkovich, and Mayor Horrigan. Resolution congratulating and honoring the 2017 East CLC football team and their coaches on winning the Akron City Series football championship and declaring an emergency.
Thank you so much. Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today it gives me great pleasure and honor to congratulate the East Dragons on their Akron City Series championship win, where they won by a score of 21-20, and they beat the Booked Griffs. Just thought I would throw that out there. And I want to not only just congratulate these young men for doing such a fine job, but their coaches who have sown into them to allow them to aspire to not be just good athletes, but to be good students as well. And they should be commended for that. I not only want to congratulate you, I want you to stand up so we all can congratulate you because you deserve it. You guys have worked hard for it the last 2 years. And I want their coach, Coach Hayes, to come up here to the mic and talk to us a little bit about these young men. And, you know, they've won 2 years in a row. My little cousin, Dominic Holly, played for this fine man right here, and they're doing some wonderful things over there. So, Coach?
How's everybody doing?
Well, thank you.
First, I would like to say that there's no place I would rather coach, there's no place I would rather teach than to be over at East High School. These young men that we have are extraordinary gentlemen. They are men of character. They are good people that you just love to be around. The coaching staff that we have, they're phenomenal. We have a couple of our coaches that are here with me right now. We have Coach Robert Wembley. If you wouldn't mind standing up, please, sir. We have Coach Gabriel Gonzalez. Would you mind standing? And we have Coach Wayne Stevenson back here. Coach Stevenson, special moment for him because he's getting voted into the East High School Hall of Fame in spring.
Double.
These young men, they do a fantastic job day in and day out. When we took over the program 6 years ago, we finished our first season with 0 wins, 10 losses, and now over the past 3 years, we've went to the city championship game 3 years in a row. We've won 2 of those games, and we were the first team in East High School history to go to the playoffs last season. And it wasn't just a Cinderella year because we followed that year up this year, winning 8 out of our 11 games that we played to go and win another city championship. But I think also most importantly, we have 16 seniors on our team. They're all going to graduate, but out of those 16, But also out of those 16 seniors, we have 11 of them who also have pledging scholarship offers to go on and play college football and have their education paid for at the next level. So we definitely appreciate the honor of coming down here. Our players, it's cold outside, it was snowing, it's even basketball season, but as you can see, these Dragons, they love playing football for us, and we love them also, and that's why they're sitting in the crowd today. Thank you.
Councilman Milkovich, did you want to add something? Please.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I, too, want to say thank you for a great season. Madam President, I believe this might be the best-kept secret in Akron with this program that they have. But the secret is out, and we are proud of you. The city is proud of you. And I wish and hope the best in your future. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Milkovich. Now, to really give you a real reward, I'm going to let you know you do not need to stay for the rest of the meeting. Okay? If you, I'm sorry, the mayor.
Mr. Neal had.
Councilman Neal.
I can't call it.
Well, Madam Chair, this piece of legislation was in Park and Rec, and they didn't have to pull it out. I am a Booker Griffin. I bleed black and white. But I am going to take a page out of the mayor's book. If he was man enough last week to bring in a resolution honoring Hoban, and I know he's a St. B grad, I can be man enough to honor the East High Dragons. But out of all seriousness, I do bleed black and white. I was at the first game where Booker won the percentage championship. I didn't go to the city championship because I knew it could only be a repeat, or I would be frustrated if I went to the game. But I want to congratulate you seriously on a fine season. I respect your program. I do want to check some birth certificates, though, because I was at the basketball game this past week, and some of those young men are huge. But I do want to congratulate you, and I want to congratulate the East High community. I mean, the resolve of that community, we know that you had to fight for your school, and the things that you did to just represent your community back then when you saved the high school. And we would just think if we would have lost the high school, we wouldn't even be talking about this right now. So you represent the essence of what it means to be a kid from Akron, what it means to be an Akronite. And I know we got one more basketball game that we have to play because we play two, right? So I will be at that game. And I'm looking forward to next season because just like Ohio State isn't Ohio State without Michigan, you know, the City Series isn't the City Series without a good rivalry, and I'm looking forward to the next year's game. So congratulations.
That was well worth sticking around for, so thank you, Councilman Neal. Now, if the mayor of Akron would like to speak.
Thank you. For stand up again, I got to see how big you guys are again. I didn't get it. Jeez, you're right. I think there's not birth certificates, but it looks like you guys are eating well. First of all, congratulations. I know you guys have represented the city well. In Coach, in your description of these young men, it sounds a lot like they learned a lot from you. And so congratulations to you and your staff and everybody that teaches at East High School. You're great representatives for this city. There's a great rivalry with all of these city schools. And Deputy Mayor Brown over here, I know, is chomping at the bit because he's a Ram. And I do remember some great teams through there. So it takes a little bit of credit, but congratulations again. You guys represent the city well. So thank you.
Anyone else? Well, that hall pass is still yours, if you would care to leave us now, but
You don't have to.
you have done more for us than we certainly have done for you, so thank you for coming this evening. And thank you, coaches. We will now go back to our meeting, but that sure is wonderful. We will now take a look at the consent agenda, if any of you are following. Is there a motion? There's been a motion. Is there a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, we will vote on the consent agenda.
Roll call. Freeman. Fusco. Hope. Kamer. Keith. Kilby. Milkovich. Mosley Samples. Neal. Amobian. Sims. Somerville. Swirsky.
You can all do a unison aye if you want. Thank you. I don't read lips. Wait a minute, maybe if I put on my glasses.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, we didn't vote on a resolution.
Oh, you're right, we did not. I apologize, thank you. And that was good that you did, it just... Okay, we do need to vote on the resolution.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. All right, everybody wake up. Freeman. Fusco. Hope. Kamer. Keith.
Aye.
Kilby. Milkovich. Mosley Samples. Neal. Amobian. Sims. Somerville. Swirsky.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. And we have voted on the consent agenda, so now we will move to our regular agenda and consent.
Yeah, you got the,
Okay. Right.
Yeah, you got that.
And we'll go to budget, and it was the committee as a whole, so I'm going to call on Councilman Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee met this afternoon, and we are asking for suspension of the rules.
Okay. The committee has requested suspension of the rules because there has been a favorable report. All those in favor of suspension of the rules signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman Freeman?
Everest Infrastructure Partners, they're a leader in cell tower leasing and management, and they have approached the city of Akron offering $11 million for the lease of 12 different locations in the city, and I believe $6 million of that will be going to the 2017 budget. The other $5,000 will be held in reserve, which will then improve our bottom line and subsequently our bond ratings, and with that we ask for its passage.
We will now vote on passage of this ordinance. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will now do a roll call on that.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco. Hoke. Kamer. Keith.
Aye.
Kilby. Milkovich. Mosley Samples. Neal. Amobian. Sims. Somerville. Swirsky.
That passes unanimously. And I want to thank all of you that made time. We had 2 special meetings on this. I want to thank all of you for making time to make it to those meetings. Okay, we will now go to,
Yeah, go to that.
thank you, rules. Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee requests time.
Okay, and time will be granted. And we will go back to budget and finance with Councilman Freeman. What are the wishes of your committee?
The committee's requested that the rules be suspended and that we can pass this out this evening.
Okay. This ordinance, the committee has found it favorable. They're asking for suspension of the rules. All those in favor of suspension of the rules signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, we will do a roll call on this under budget and finance.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco. Hoke. Kaler. Keith.
Aye.
Kilby. Milkovich. Mosley Sample. Neal. Amobian. Sims. Somerville. Swirsky.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. That also passes. Okay, now we will go to planning. Councilman Fusco, what are the wishes of your committee? I apologize for that. We do. We have a public hearing. I apologize.
Yeah.
So if we could have, I see that John York will swear in anyone that is here. So, well, we have two public hearings this evening?
Correct.
We have two public hearings. If any of you are down here for the public hearing and you would like to speak during the public hearing, if you could stand and be sworn in, then you'll have the ability to speak after we get done reading it in. Okay. Anyone down here for the public hearing, not to be confused with the public comment period. Okay.
These are on conditional uses, correct?
Correct.
Zoning. For conditional uses, anyone?
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, and nothing but the truth? Say, I do. Thank you.
Okay, good enough. Okay.
Okay. First public hearing, legal notice. It's hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, December 11, 2017, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. in council chambers, 166 South High Street, upon an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to place CO2 tanks at 1031 Forbes Avenue.
Okay, is there, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. Gemm & Sons is proposing to extend their commercial business by locating a CO2 tank upon residentially zoned property, which requires conditional use approval. A new 6 feet in height solid fence would screen the tank from the residential properties to the east and north. The remainder of the Forbes Avenue lot would be fenced, and the only access to the lot would be from South Arlington. The CO2 tank area is needed at this location to manufacture dry ice. Gemm & Sons Limited has been doing business in the Akron area for over 120 years. The proposed CO2 tank area would be screened from view, and its contents are not hazardous, allowing Gemm & Sons Limited to slightly expand into the adjacent residential neighborhood would not be detrimental to the area. Both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Okay. If you will come up to the podium there, state your first name and last name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
Yeah, Harry Gehm, G-E-H-M is my last name. He said I'm 5 generations a deep company. This is just to help us expand and to grow our business, hopefully. We are going into the manufacturing of dry ice. This is mainly to put a CO2 vessel that is stationary, it just sits there. So hopefully it will help us.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone in the audience to speak against this ordinance? Is there anyone in the audience to speak against? Seeing none, we will close this particular public hearing. Thank you, Councilman Fusco. What are the wishes of your committee?
Yes, thank you, President Keith. I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report.
Please do.
Suspension of the rules. Mobian. Kamer. Neal. Swirsky.
Okay. The committee has a favorable report. They're requesting suspension of the rules. So we now will vote on suspension of the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Councilman Fusco, did you want to add anything to what Mr. Antonucci's already said?
Just that the fire chief is going to be reviewing this along with the superintendent of the building inspection, and the fencing and such is going to have to be approved by our planning department. So recommend approval this evening.
Thank you. All those in favor of passage of this ordinance signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? Seeing none and hearing none, we will do a roll call.
Roll call and final passage, Freeman. Fusco.
What? Freeman?
Fusco. Hoke. Kamer. Keith.
Aye.
Kilby. Milkovich. Mosley Sample. Neal. Amobian. Sims. Somerville. Swirsky.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now go to our second public hearing that we have for this evening.
Legal notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, December 11th, 2017, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. in Council Chambers, 166 South High Street, upon an ordinance authorizing conditional use to construct an oversized accessory use structure at 2095 Forest Ledge Drive.
Forest Edge. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. Laura Gurick is requesting permission to construct a 58 feet by 30-foot garage for 3,580 square feet on all levels. The property currently contains a single-family dwelling and a barn. The proposed structure is to be centrally located on this large 15-acre property. The structure will be constructed with decorative split-face block and vertical board and batten siding. The property is located in an area with a very low density of housing that can be characterized as rural in nature, and the attractive garage would not be out of character for the neighborhood and would be used for residential purpose of storing personal vehicles and equipment necessary for the day-to-day operations of maintaining their land and horse farm. And both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend approval subject to conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Is there anyone in the audience to speak in favor of this ordinance? And if you could please give us your first name, last name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Mark, and the last name is spelled Ciraldo, Ciraldo. I'm an architect, and I live at 786 Meredith Lane, and that's in Ward 1. I am here as an agent and also for the proponent, Laura Gaguric, who wishes to build a 4-plus car garage for their maintenance and for cars and for equipment storage. This is needed for a conditional use since they have an existing garage attached to their existing home. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer any.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in the audience to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone in the audience to speak against this ordinance? Anyone to speak against? Seeing none, Councilman Fusco, what are the wishes of your committee?
I'd like to pull the committee to refer this item.
Okay, please do.
Amobian? Kamer? Neal? Swirsky? Aye.
Okay, this item will be referred then.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Fusco on the remainder of your items.
I'd like to take time on 3 through and including 12.
Time on 3 through 12.
File 13, please.
File.
Time on the balance.
And time on the balance. Thank you. Public Utilities, Councilman Neal, what are the wishes of your committee?
Madam Chair, the committee's request is continued time, but I would like to state, based on this afternoon's meeting, council members should have received in their box information on the Lift Up program. Because of the legislation that we've been taking time on now for a little over a year, in connection with requests from members of the community regarding the HEAT program. This information will address that issue along with what I'm supposed to meet with Mr. Moore about, and next week we should be bringing something in to address that. Thank you.
So that information that was promised you was put in your mailboxes, so if you could take some time with that. So time on that.
Yeah.
Okay, now we will go to the new legislation. That's okay. Budget and Finance, and the clerk will read it in.
Item number 1, offered by Mayor Horrigan. Ordinance amending and/or supplementing Title IX General Provisions, Chapter 104 Income Tax Ordinance, Section 104.03, Purpose of Tax Rate, in order to update the codified ordinances of the City of Akron to reflect the additional 0.25% income tax levied pursuant Section 86E of the Charter of the City of Akron as approved by the voters on November 7, 2017, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Councilman Freeman.
Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Thank you. The committee has a favorable report, is asking for suspension of the rules. All those in favor of suspension of the rules signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, Councilman Freeman.
As the clerk read, on November 7th, the voters did approve a 0.25% income tax increase, and this ordinance will simply allow us to amend our code of ordinances that we can begin to collect that additional 0.25% on January 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor of this ordinance signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll do a roll call.
Roll call. Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Aye. Hoke. Aye. Kamer. Aye. Keith.
Aye.
Kilby. Aye. Milkovich. Mosley Samples. Aye. Neal. Aye. Amobian. Aye. Sims. Aye. Somerville. Swirsky.
Aye. Madam Chair, it was also said, I failed to mention this in the meeting today, that the new revenue that's going to be coming in at the administration is going to be demonstrating how they'll be keeping their promise for fire and safety and streets, and the citizens will have a vehicle whereby they'll be able to see that on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Freeman. That ordinance does pass.
Okay. Item number 2, planning, offered by Fusco. Ordinance declaring certain improvements to real property located in the White Pond Frank Boulevard urban renewal area to be of public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, providing for the collection of service payments in lieu of taxes and the deposit of those service payments in the appropriate fund, providing for the payment of a portion of said service payments to the Akron Public School District, all pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code sections 5709.41 to 5709.43, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Councilman Fusco, what are the wishes of your committee?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda. Number 2 or 3.
Number 3. Item number 3, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the city to grant easement interest in the city property to Cleveland Clinic, Akron General Hospital, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco, what are the wishes of your committee?
Refer.
This item will be referred.
Okay, item number 4, offered by Fusco. Resolution declaring the necessity and the intent of the city of Akron to appropriate fee simple interest in real property owned by Noah Zalewski, located at 408 Wellington Avenue for the purpose of constructing, maintaining, repairing, enlarging, and reconstructing a sewer or sewers and water lines for drainage, sewerage, and water line purposes in connection with the Hazel Street Storage Basin Project, CSO RAC 1011, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco, what are the wishes of your committee?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 5, offered by Fusco. Ordinance declaring improvements to certain real property located at Eastgate 2 urban redevelopment area to be of a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, declaring the construction and rehabilitation of certain real property is a public purpose, providing for the collection of service payments in lieu of taxes and deposit of those service payments in the Urban Redevelopment Tax Increment Equivalent Fund, providing for the payment of portion of said service payments to the Akron Public School District, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco, what are the wishes of your committee?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 6, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing execution of a contract for sale of land and private redevelopment with the East Akron Neighborhood Development Corporation and EANDC Middlebury LLC or their respective assignees, providing for the acquisition, sale, lease, and redevelopment of property to the amended Middlebury Urban Renewal Plan area, finding such property is not needed for any public use and related findings and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco, the wishes of your committee?
Consent agenda.
And that item will be placed in the consent agenda. Thank you. We will now go to public service.
Public service, item number 7, offered by SIM. Ordinance, authorize the mayor, the director of public service, and the director of finance, and the director of neighborhood assistance to enter into contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the purchase of materials and services needed by various divisions and departments of the city for a period of time not to exceed 3 years, approving specifications therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Sims.
Madam Chair, the committee's request is for consent.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, item number 8, offered by President Keith. Excuse me. Ordinance, appointing and approving the Assessment Equalization Board member list, declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Sims, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests time.
Okay, time.
Okay.
Just quickly, Madam Chair.
Yes.
We talked earlier today about there's a number of wards that don't have representation on the Equalization Board, and asked those members if they would kindly identify someone that could serve. Ideally, I'm sure there's some young person out there would just love an opportunity to be on a committee like this and serve. So if you can get that, your nominees to Sarah or to Mr. Keith ASAP, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Okay, item number 9, offered by Mr. Neal. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service, without the formality of advertising for bids, to enter into a contract for the replacement of water transmission main beneath State Route 43 at Ravenna Road in Kent, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Neal, what are the wishes of your committee?
Madam Chair, committee's request is consent agenda.
And this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, item number 10, offered by Councilwoman Mosley Samples, Councilwoman Amobian, and Councilwoman Sims. Ordinance amending, supplementing Title 7, Traffic Code, Chapter 70, General Provisions, Article 4, Impounding, Section 70.52, Motor Vehicle Pounds, in order to add 2 towing companies to the city's towing districts and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer, what are the wishes of your committee?
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is adverse. We're asking for a vote.
Okay. The committee has an adverse report, so we will now vote. If you are for the adverse report, you say aye. Okay, so we will do a roll call vote on this one right now. We are voting for the adverse report. Freeman, go ahead.
Okay. Freeman. Fusco. Hope. Kamer.
Aye.
Keith.
Aye.
Kilby. Velkovich. Mosley Samples. Neal. Amobian. Sims. Somerville. Swirsky.
Okay. The vote is for the adverse report. That would be 9-4. Go ahead.
Okay. Item number 11, Public Safety, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for needed repairs and improvements to kitchen facilities in 2 of the city's fire stations in accordance with the 2017 capital improvement plan and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer, what are the wishes of your committee?
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is to place this item on consent agenda, please. Thank you.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 13, Health and Social Service, offered by Councilwoman Mosley Samples. It's a resolution opposing tax bill recently passed by the United States Senate, urging the President to veto any such legislation that comes before him, urging the President to shield Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security from any cuts and declaring an emergency.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman Amobian, what are the wishes of your committee?
I'd first like to have the Councilwoman Moses Samples to speak to this resolution.
Okay,
Thank
you can first tell me what you've decided to do, and then when it comes time to explain it, we'll go to her.
We want to do council as a whole.
Okay. The suspension of the rules?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the committee is asking for suspension of the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, Councilwoman Tara Moses Samples.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This resolution opposes the tax bill recently passed by the U.S. Senate on December 2nd around 2 a.m. in the morning. Such passage by President Trump would negatively impact the economic health of this country, and this bill would add $1.4 trillion to our already incurring deficit over the next 10 years, and those possible cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security will possibly go into effect if this goes into law. I'm asking my colleagues to stand with me on this resolution going down to Washington, D.C., urging the President to veto such legislation that comes before him and to shield Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security from any cuts. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And Councilwoman Amobian, I believe you had requested at the afternoon meeting. I'll let you make the motion.
I would like for us to move that we vote on this as council as a whole.
And Mayor, did you want to be included in that? No? Okay, and council as a whole. All righty. All those in favor of this ordinance as council as a whole signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, we will do a roll call vote.
Okay, Freeman? Pusko? Hoke? No. Kamer? Keith?
Aye.
Kilby? Aye. Milkovich? Aye. Mosley Samples? Aye. Neal? Aye. Amobian? Aye. Sims? Aye. Somerville? Aye. Swirsky? Aye.
I couldn't hear Swirsky.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and it passes, but obviously not as council as a whole. So,
okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
Item number 14, offered by Somerville, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a grant agreement with Rogers Industrial Products Incorporated and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee requests the consent agenda.
And this item will be placed on the consent agenda. And in case you were following along, we already did number 12, which was in Parks and Rec. So that was handled earlier in the meeting. Almost not voted on, but was. Okay, this concludes our new legislation that has come before us today. Those things on consent, we will see again next week. And now we will go to the public comment period. But before we go to the public comment period, I do notice in the front row, right behind your chair, Councilwoman Mosley Samples, it took me a while till I saw you, and I knew that State Representative Tavia Galinsky was going to be here this evening because she came early. And so I knew she was going to be here. I just didn't see you, so I apologize. So this is our State Representative, Tavia, and I wanted you all to know who she was. Thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. And now we will go to the portion of the meeting we refer to as a public comment period. If you wish to speak to this council during this time, you can approach the podium. Please sign in and state your full name, spell your last name, and give us your address. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. Speakers are reminded that this is an official meeting. Remarks should be kept respectful and germane to council business. Speakers should refrain from making personal attacks, and anyone who breaches decorum will be ruled out of order and may be removed from council chambers. So if you care to, make sure that you sign in, please, and you may approach.
I am John Beatty, B-E-A-T-Y, at 2047 Wyndham Road. And Madam Council, or President, and members of the council, and Mayor Horrigan, homelessness is a very serious problem in our city. And the church that I attend is trying its best as a part of Family Promise, which is a compact of churches, synagogues, and mosques who turn over their religious facilities during the week for people who are temporarily homeless, and they change their Sunday school rooms to bedrooms and have a family gathering area and so forth. I'm going to yield my time to a dear person, a special guest of our church this last week. I'm not going to mention her last name unless she mentions it herself, but her first name is Justina. And over after supper, we had a very interesting conversation, and I felt that what she had to say, a story of Second Chance Village and what it's doing for homeless people who are not a part of that village, is worth listening to. So, Justina, would you come and share your story and share with the rest of us?
May I make a suggestion? Why doesn't Justina take her own time? Because half your time's over with. Would that be okay, Justina, if we do that now? I'm going to stop the clock now, Justina, and clear it, and give you 3 minutes of your time, okay?
You can't allow her the rest of my time?
Oh, you mean the one, no,
It's not Congress.
But please, just go ahead, and if we need additional, I will let you know, okay? Justina, if you don't mind, if you're going to speak at the podium, I do need to know your first name and your last name. You do not need to give me your address if you want to write it on there. Go ahead, dear.
My name is Justina Steinecker, S-T-E-I-N-K-E-R. Madam President, Council Member, I wanted to talk about Second Chance Village. I didn't stay there because I have children. They don't let children in, but I was referred there for some help. Those men and women there took the time that they didn't need to because me and my children didn't qualify for their services to help us find housing and services in the community for us. I was staying in the car with my children. They have security there. They were kind enough to protect me and my children during the night while I was waiting to be placed with Family Promise. I just want to say that Second Chance Village is providing a needed service to the community. Even now, when me and my children go there, they're nice, they feed us, they make sure we have the stuff we need. The scarf I'm wearing, I got there, I went there, Paul wouldn't let me leave until I got a scarf for me and the children. Even though I can't be there because I'm a woman with children, I am still homeless, and they help all homeless, not just single homeless people. I just want to say I don't want Second Chance to be closed down, and I'm here to tell my story. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you want to stick around after the meeting, I'll be happy to talk to you about some other resources that we have here in the city that may also help you. Okay, you're so welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Brian Beal, and I live at 1179 Dietz Avenue. I own Kenny's Automotive, located at 1043 Grant Street in Akron. Kenny's Automotive has been in business in the city of Akron for 50 years now. We have an A+ rating with the business rating with the Better Business Bureau for over 30 years. We have 16 employees, 14 of which live in the city of Akron. The equipment that we currently have, we have 3 light-duty tow trucks, 6 flatbeds, 1 12-ton wrecker, 1 16-ton wrecker, 1 25-ton wrecker, and a service van, We offer 24 hours towing, 365 days a year, and have someone staffed 24 hours a day. We have a fenced-in lot large enough to handle direct and impounded vehicles located at 1043 Grant Street. I'm looking for fair business opportunities in the city of Akron for my company. I'm confident that we are able to handle the towing district at this time. I apologize I did not make the meeting this afternoon. I had never received the correct time. I did get the legislation late Friday evening. I did not get a time to be earlier to be there. I did see some issues with the current legislation, mainly month-to-month. Switching back and forth would be money flow issues for any company, and on the downtime, trying to keep your employees busy, not being able to cover, when it's your time not to be able to cover that area. I propose the city council put something together as far as a total redistrict of all districts in the whole city to make it fair and available for all qualifying towing companies in the Akron area, since it has not been done for over 30 years. I feel the current way of having to buy a company to get a district is unfair for qualifying companies that has been in the city for many years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I am Catherine Hanratty. That's Hanratty. The address is 9059 Auburn Road, Chardon, Ohio. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Madam Secretary, and members of the council for allowing me to speak today. As a Geauga County resident and a water advocate, I'm concerned about plans to log around the Ladue Reservoir. That's in Geauga County. Because this land was purchased for the purpose of protecting the watershed and in order to provide a source of clean drinking water for the people of Akron, I believe that it is short-sighted to remove trees that are instrumental in producing runoff, purifying water, and preventing erosion. I have some specific questions that I think must be addressed prior to any logging. And some of those questions I will mention, and also those questions should be at everybody's table. Number one is, have baseline measurements been taken of the air and water quality in the area to be logged? And if not, when will that be completed, and who is responsible for assuring that that is complete? Also, how will water quality be monitored during and following the logging? How often will that monitoring occur, and who is responsible for making sure that it happens? Also, what specific plans are in place to make and protect streams and other water bodies, including vernal pools, from erosion and sedimentation? Will buffer zones be clearly marked, and how wide will those buffer zones be? If erosion does occur, what plans in place are to protect the water of Ladue and the streams and vernal pools from sedimentation? If sedimentation flows into the reservoir and the area is warmed due to the loss of canopy, what plans are in place to prevent harmful algal blooms from proliferating in Ladue? And what plans are in place to address the loss of large live root systems that help to channel water deep into the ground and protect the aquifer, or to protect the canopy, forest canopy, that keeps the soil spongy and able to accept water into the ground? A forest is a living and breathing natural system that can sustain itself. There are ecosystem services provided by these natural systems that have tangible and intangible value. I ask that time be taken to consider less damaging ways to create revenue, systems that will keep our water safe and plentiful. Thank you very much for your time.
You're so welcome. And if you would not mind, next to where you signed in with your name, would you put your email address so we can get you the answers that you need or call you?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to personally apologize. You did call me, and I did not get back to you. So I apologize.
Thank you.
I believe it was you. Okay.
Madam Chairman, and assembled council persons. My name is Bill Ginn, and I'm from Chagrin Falls, Ohio. I was a practicing attorney in downtown Cleveland for longer than you want to think. I came here in 1950, and I am now retired, but in my retirement, and even when I practiced as an attorney, my biggest passion was the environment, and how are we to live in this environment that is about to have some things done with it that we do not believe have been given full consideration. I must say that it's a pride of the people in Geauga County and elsewhere that you have always taken seriously the quality of water that is in Ladue Reservoir and in the other reservoirs that you own as our largest landholder in Geauga County. And we are not in favor of rushing to judgment on, as we would view it, on the question of going into a 42-acre parcel and cutting down all of the mature trees that are in that, and that's about 10 trees per acre. They are mature trees. They were planted undoubtedly by the city of Akron, and now because there's a tightening of budgets, the idea is to go in and log those trees and then proceed who knows where. We've been advised in what little information we have that the an Akron Beacon Journal reporting earlier said that the acreage, if it's timbered, will raise possibly $50,000 to $70,000. That is a pittance to what these trees are actually worth. Not only as they stand stately in that ecosystem, but also it's well understood. One of my main clients in life was the Davy Tree Company in Kent. And I consulted with their scientists, and we have a statement that we have provided to you that if you read that statement, and I hope you will, that it's clear that taking the trees out is leaving the ecosystem in peril, and it will affect undoubtedly the quality of water that you have provided all these many years in these two reservoirs, Ladue and I think East Bank, or whatever names you have given it.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up, and I apologize.
All right. Is it up now, Madam?
It was up a few seconds ago, but you were doing a nice job.
I think that we're concerned, as you are, about budgets and how we get some value for what we have done. And for what you have done in that ecosystem that you have built over decades, there are other options.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And we don't think that they have been considered. We're quite sure that they have not been, and we would like the time to work with your staff.
We will make sure to get answers to these to
Yes.
Kathy, if Kathy has provided us with what we need, and maybe that will help with the ongoing conversation.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christy Schmidtber. I live in Clarendon Township in Geauga County, and I've the largest maple sugar producer in Geauga County. I have a land that I rent and also that I own that is in the corridor. We're at the very start of the Cuyahoga River, and then we also have land that is very contiguous to the Ladue property. We're appalled, actually, by the decision to strip these trees. It's not just about the trees. It's not about board feet. It's not about building, beautiful wood houses and beautiful ornaments. It's about preserving this great canopy and this great asset that you have and that your ancestors had and that we created in Ohio. The red oaks are not just about board feet and lumber. They are about a natural growing habitat that we have, and we need to protect and preserve this. Why, you might ask? So that your residents, your grandchildren, your children are drinking quality water, they're bathing in it, you're making their pablum in it, you're giving it to your athletes so they grow big and strong and win games. But the seriousness of this cannot be underscored. We're asking for a public meeting to be held in Geauga County with the people who pay taxes there, who are going to be impacted by this, not just by where they live and not just by the beautiful trees and the colorful trees that are there, but to keep the biodiversity in there. I can't explain to you exactly in 3 minutes how important the flora, the fauna, the canopy, the birds. It's not just about any single bird species. It's about this continuum that helps to protect your greatest asset. We are 90% water, and the next fight of the next century is going to be about water. So we started to talk to other people about what other opportunities you could have to generate income, annual income, not just a quick slash and burn, but an annual income. And there are carbon sequestration programs available through the Nature Conservancy. The Davy Tree that was mentioned is also involved in that, Ohio State University. So there are programs that would return far more than that annually based on putting the easements and also the trading those carbon credits. And it is available. It's a great program that's occurring in Pennsylvania and Michigan and New York, and why we're not taking advantage of that or why you are not. So I would encourage Madam Chairman and members, distinguished members, to really reconsider other avenues. We're happy to make those introductions for you. I have a quick poem that I'd like to read here. This is from a book called Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder. It says, the best of intentions, why Johnny and Jeannie don't play outside anymore. Our children no longer learn how to read from the great book of nature, from their own direct experience, or how to interact creatively with the seasonal transformation of the planet. They seldom learn where their water comes from or where it goes. We no longer coordinate our human celebration with the great liturgy of the heavens.
Thank you so much.
One more quick one.
You know what, your time is up, and I actually gave you additional time for the poem. But I know that you brought in some literature tonight. I will make sure after I view it that it goes into everyone's mailboxes, that they see what you brought this evening. So I want to thank you for educating us.
We would like that committee to come and meet in Auburn Township to be able to provide the trustees, the township trustees, and others to be able to hear their concerns and their fears right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh, please don't. Oh, please. Oh, I apologize, but we don't do that here in our meeting, in these chambers. Okay. Is there anyone else to approach council? Seeing none, our public comment period is over. We will now set our meeting schedule for next week. Rules, 2:30. Budget,
3 p.m.
3 p.m. Planning, 1:30. Public service, 2 o'clock. Public utilities,
2:30.
2:30. Public Safety, 215. Parks and Rec,
215.
215. Housing, 330. Health and Social Services, 230. Economic Development, 245. Green Sustainable, 1 o'clock. Is there anything else to come before council for the good of council? I saw Councilwoman Amobian's hand and then Councilman Neal.
I certainly like to take this opportunity to thank Representative Tavia Baxter Golansky, District 35 representative, for coming down here this evening. But not only that, for the fine work you're doing in Columbus. I know that you and Representative Seitz are trying to do your best to represent us well in this community. So we certainly wish you well, and thank you so much for coming down. Secondly, I want to make it very clear that the resolution that was brought in regarding the towing services was never intended to take away business from anyone. It was about looking at the 7 districts and looking at ways in which we could share those 7 districts. And I certainly voted against the adverse report, and I would like for us at some future date to consider how we can share those districts. We currently have 7 districts, and we have 5 different companies, or 4 doing 7 districts, or 5 doing 7 districts, however that works out. And basically what we have discussed, since we've all become aware of all of this, is how can we bring in some additional towing services. And it was never about taking anything away from anyone. So I don't want you to leave here thinking that all these years that you've invested in equipment and staff, and now we don't want you to have a business. That certainly is far from the truth. So thank you for coming down, but I'd like for us to revisit this sometime in the future so that we can look at how we can share those districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the request from our neighbors from Geauga County that members come, I did just kind of like meet eye to eye with our service director, Mr. Moore, and he's going to try to put some things together, and if so, we will honor that request. So I did want to mention that. But of course, it does no good for just committee, but we need the administration. I believe he's going to connect that. The other thing is, in regards to the towing legislation, the thing that was discussed, like I said this afternoon, and I think there's more than just myself that feel this way. I can relate because being a small business owner, I know how I would feel if I made the investment with the understanding that that district was a part of that investment. But I could also understand being a small business owner and being a part of the city of having an opportunity to do that work as well. As I said, before I became on council, I did work for the city. I was able to bid on it. The way the towing districts are set up is different. They don't have the opportunity to bid. And on a city contract, all the information is open. You know what the cost is, you know what the last year's price was, and you get an opportunity to bid. But I bring that up for this point. With that legislation and with other things, we've been talking in this council about equity. And I think some have associated just with race or just with gender and sexual orientation. But equity is for every citizen in the city of Akron. These small business owners that have towing companies that want to be able to participate, what they're asking for is for equity, for us to provide an opportunity for them to have this the same opportunity. And if you know anything about equity, in some cases, because the way the districts are drawn, we may have to draw some things different. But I bring that up like this afternoon. We need the collective voice. We need our police department, as was mentioned by members of council, and Captain Shea, I believe it was. We need those that are in the towing industry to be a part of that decision process. So I bring that up because I did have a chance to talk to our legal counsel, Ms. Lander Nish, and she did share with me The one thing we need is we need an equity policy to guide us. We talk about it, but we need to create an equity policy to guide us, and we need input from everyone. And she did share, correct me if I'm wrong, that our mayor is looking into that?
Not just ways to
Okay, ways to,
advance equity and inclusion.
okay, but I would like to share that that is a direction that we need to go, because you hear equity in this horseshoe. If you listen to the news, you're hearing the word equity used, and it's important that we have the right understanding of what equity is, so that we embrace it and not look at it as an adverse thing. But to really form equitable policy, it takes the collective voice. It can't be done in a small vacuum. I think when we created the legislation for the Civil Rights Commission for the LGBTQ community, there was an attempt to have equitable input in forming that legislation. Same thing with anything else we do. Many voices make for better legislation. That being said, the last thing, 2 weeks ago now, members came down to ask us to assist them with the problems that they were running into based on legislation we passed for their health care. And I bring up this equity thing again because we have to understand what it means, because in printed publication that we have, we talk about forming equitable health care for our employees and our retirees. Now, some of us did have a chance to meet with Mr. Rice last week, and there were some questions asked, and we didn't get a chance to get those answers. I'm asking, Madam President, if we can get those answers, because the members from the, and I know you've gotten emails as well, the members that have those concerns have reached out to us. We know that the deadline is the 15th. If there's anything that we can do as a city, we have to act expeditiously, because after the 15th, it'll be more difficult to assist them. And there were some creative things that were brought up as far as how we can assist them in the short meeting that we had. But we do need to act on that if we're earnest about at least looking if there's anything that we can do at all. So, thank you.
Councilman Swirsky.
Well, I just want to thank the people from Geauga County coming down here. I think these are great questions, and I know I'll be working with Council President to make sure they get answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Sims.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too want to say hello to State Representative Tavia Galansky, and thank you for coming down. But last week, Brother Steve Muhammad came and addressed the council and talked about a community conversation they were having with young folks. We continued as a council, I think as a city, to grapple with the issues around gun violence as a public health crisis, and where do we go to better address that. Our chairman of Safety Committee, Donnie Kamer, pulled together a group of folks, primarily initially consisting of members of council. The police department has come in and began working with us, and we will continue to do that work. But on this past Saturday at Second Baptist Church, Brother Steve Muhammad, along with Crystal Jones, who is also working with us as a part of a city effort to devise a youth violence strategy to address youth violence in our city, hosted a community conversation. And I was very grateful for the number of young folks who had the opportunity to really infuse their voice in the conversation. And what we heard a lot of was to give them a chance and not to allow the media to portray an image about them that is not necessarily true. Interesting enough, they use as a backdrop an interview that Tupac Shakur used as he expressed similar sentiments about how images get portrayed about particularly young men of color, and how that translates and plays out in terms of how the general community engages them, which is often charged by an image that they perceive that they are. They just really want us to know that they have hope for the future. They are concerned about continuous gun violence in our city, but they're hopeful. And I just wanted to report back and thank Brother Steve Muhammad, as well as the Nation of Islam as a whole, and Project Ujima for pulling that together, and for all the young folks who came out to engage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, there's been a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? We are adjourned.